Every single time a new technology comes along and completely changes the world, a battle for control follows. It's not a fluke. It happened with the steam engine, it happened with the telegraph, and yeah, it happened with the internet. And right now, we're watching all over again with AI. And look, this isn't some wild guess. It's a pattern, one we've seen play out time and time again. When a piece of technology is powerful enough to actually reshape society, a fight over who gets to control it is, well, it's pretty much guaranteed. AI is just the latest chapter in this very old story, but it might just be the most powerful one yet.
So all this stuff we're seeing with AI right now, the big debates, the talk about new regulations, even a lot of the fear, it's all part of a super predictable cycle. And by looking at the past, we can get a much better handle on what's happening today and maybe even get a glimpse of what's coming next.
And here's what that cycle actually looks like, broken down into 4 pretty simple steps. First, some groundbreaking new tech comes along. Second, its power starts to threaten the old way of doing things, the existing order. Third, in response to that threat, new laws get created. And finally, a new system of control is locked into place. So let's see exactly how this has played out before, starting with the very first big tech boom.
All right, so let's rewind way back. We're going to start our story in the 1800s, in an era of smoke, steel, and steam. The Industrial Revolution wasn't just about building a few new machines. It was a massive, seismic shift that yanked people off of farms and threw them into factories. It literally forged the modern world. I mean, the promise was huge, right? Mass production, an incredible economic boom. But the reality? For a lot of people, it was an absolute nightmare. In that unregulated chaos of early industry, factories were basically death threats. Workdays could be 14 hours long, and children were sent down into coal mines to work. Progress had a really, really dark side. And for a while, governments kind of just looked the other way, but eventually, the human costs just got too high to ignore. You had these shocking newspaper stories coming out, public outcry got louder and louder, and finally, it forced their hand. Starting in Britain with what were called the Factory Acts, governments started to step in. They banned child labor, they put limits on work hours, and they brought in rules to make factories safer. Okay, so this is the first big takeaway. Lesson number 1, the second a technology's impact creates huge social problems, regulation isn't just some vague possibility, it's an inevitability. It's gonna happen.
So the Industrial Revolution was all about controlling physical power, right? Steam, machines. But the next big jump, that was about controlling something you can't even see, information. All of a sudden, a message could travel across the world at the speed of light.
And again, the promise was amazing. A world literally wired together. A message could zip across an entire continent in seconds. But governments, they pretty quickly saw the other side of that coin. Whoever controls the wires, well, they control the flow of information. And in an age of rising global tensions, that made communication a critical national security issue. And well, here's what happened next. During wartime, messages were censored. New laws were passed that gave governments the power to listen in on private conversations with wiretaps. The state began to tighten its grip over this powerful new global nervous system. And that right there brings us to lesson number 2. And this one really hits home today. As soon as a communication technology becomes truly powerful and widespread, the impulse for those in power to monitor it, to surveil it for threats, becomes almost irresistible. Okay, let's jump forward to a technology that completely transformed our lives, the internet. In the beginning, it really felt like a utopian dream, a new digital frontier, totally free and open, with no one in charge. I mean, the early promise was this kind of decentralized paradise of information. But that whole vision of a completely unregulated space, it was shattered by a single event. The attacks on September 11th, 2001, completely reframed the internet in the eyes of the government. It went from being a tool of liberation to being seen as a potential weapon. And that year, 2001, that was the turning point. That's when the whole Wild West idea of the internet really came to an end, and the age of serious government oversight began. The response was incredibly fast and unbelievably broad. The USA Patriot Act. This law handed the government huge new powers to monitor our digital lives, our emails, our search histories, our phone calls, and it put massive pressure on tech companies to cooperate, basically turning them into partners in the government's surveillance efforts. So, what's our third lesson here? It's all about scale. The internet connected billions of people, so the response was a system of control that could also operate at that same massive scale. When a technology's reach grows, the reach of those trying to control it scales right along with it. And that brings us right up to today. With AI, which is arguably the most powerful technology we've ever created, that global struggle for control is already in full swing. Look, the stakes with AI, they're just on another level. This isn't just some new app or gadget. This technology can predict our behavior, it can influence elections, it can create propaganda on a massive scale, and it can replace huge swaths of the workforce. The potential for disruption is off the charts, and that's exactly why everyone is scrambling to write the rules. And you can see this global scramble for control playing out right now all over the world. The EU, for example, is going for a very cautious rights-first approach with strict regulations. The US is still trying to figure out how to balance encouraging innovation with some kind of national oversight. And China is on a completely different path, weaving AI directly into its tools for state-led development and mass surveillance. 3 totally different worldviews, all competing to set the rules. You see, it's the same old story. History is just repeating itself. The technology is brand new, but the pattern is identical. That cycle of disruption, threat, legislation, and then control is playing out with AI just like it did with the steam engine and the telegraph. The pattern is holding. When you lay it all out on a timeline like this, it just becomes crystal clear. From the factory floors of the 1800s to the data centers of today, every great technological leap has been followed by a struggle for power. It's an unbroken chain stretching back almost 200 years, and it leads directly to the fight over AI that we're seeing right now. So, this is where we land. The regulation of AI isn't really a question of if it will happen, it's a question of when, and much, much more importantly, who gets to write the rules. Will those rules be written to protect citizens, to empower giant corporations, or to strengthen the hand of the state? History shows us the fight is coming, but who wins? Well, that's still to be decided.